Women in the 1950s were slim, and most of them had no idea why. Today, we're going to find out how. Breakfast was small, and it stayed that way. The 1950s breakfast was not an event. Toast, black coffee, maybe a small glass of orange juice, and I mean small. 4 ounces, barely more than a teacup. Eggs and bacon existed, absolutely. But they were Sunday morning. They were a treat that meant something because they weren't every day. You didn't sit down to a stack of pancakes before work on a Tuesday. Breakfast was functional. It got you to lunch. That was its entire job. The coffee was black or close to it, not a drink with a dessert hiding inside it, not something you'd order with a name longer than your grocery list. Just coffee, doing what coffee does. And then you were out the door. Lunch was a sandwich, just a sandwich. A sandwich meant 2 slices of bread, some meat, maybe a little cheese, some mustard or mayonnaise. 1 sandwich, maybe a few chips from a small bag, maybe an apple, water, or a small glass of milk. That was lunch. It fit in a paper bag because it was actually paper bag sized. If you went out for lunch, you ordered a plate of food and the plate had a bottom to it. There was no endless bread basket being refilled before your meal even arrived. There was no soup and salad and entree and something complimentary from the kitchen. You ordered. It came. You ate it. You left. Lunch was fuel to get through the afternoon and nothing more was asked of it. If this is bringing back memories, hit the like button. It helps more people find me who remembers this the same way you do. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. I do this every week. Stories from the America a lot of us grew up in, told the way they deserve to be told. Now, back to it. Dinner had rules and the rules held. Dinner in a 1950s home was meat, a starch, and a vegetable, 1 serving of each, on a plate that had empty space on it. Seconds weren't automatic. You asked. Sometimes the answer was yes. Sometimes it was there isn't enough for seconds, or you'll spoil your appetite for dessert. And that was that. The meat was normal-sized because the chicken and the cows hadn't been engineered for size yet. A pork chop was the size of a pork chop. A chicken breast was the size of a chicken breast. The vegetables weren't optional, and they weren't negotiable. They weren't buried in cheese sauce or presented as a side you could skip. They were part of dinner. You ate them because that was what dinner was. And the bread, there might be a roll, 1 roll, and when it was gone, it was gone. You cooked from scratch, and that was the whole point. Every dinner started with actual ingredients. The chicken came raw, the potatoes came dirty from the ground, the green beans were fresh or frozen, not from a can loaded with sodium and additives. This mattered more than anyone realized at the time. When you cook from scratch, there's a natural ceiling on how rich and caloric a meal gets. You can only add so much butter. You can only make food so sweet before it takes too much sugar and too much effort. Real ingredients have their own limits. Processed food doesn't have those limits. Processed food was engineered later specifically to push past them. But in 1955, dinner was whatever came out of your kitchen from real food. And real food, prepared simply, lands at a reasonable calorie count almost automatically. You weren't trying to be healthy, you were just cooking dinner. Snacking was discouraged and everyone accepted that. It'll ruin your appetite. Every woman reading this has either said that sentence or had it said to her approximately 10,000 times. And it worked. The 3-meal structure was maintained by that sentence, by social expectation, by the fact that snack food wasn't sitting out on the counter calling your name all day. If you wanted a snack in 1955, you had to decide you wanted one, find it, and prepare it. It was not convenient. It was not engineered to be irresistible. It was a piece of fruit or a few crackers or a small handful of whatever was in the cabinet. Children who tried to eat between meals were redirected to wait for dinner. Adults who were hungry between meals were expected to manage it. Nobody called this suffering. It was just how eating was organized. The portions were human-sized. This is the one that stops people cold when you actually do the comparison. A McDonald's hamburger in 1955 was the size of a hamburger. That's it. A single thin patty on a small bun. The whole meal, burger, small fries, a small Coke, was about 600 calories. A soda came in a 6.5-ounce glass bottle. That was the size. That was what a soda was. A restaurant dinner was 1 plate of food. That plate had defined edges. What was on it was what you were getting. Ice cream came in a scoop, 1 reasonable scoop in a small bowl, not 2 enormous scoops in a waffle cone the size of your head. None of this felt like deprivation at the time because it was simply what food looked like. Nobody knew to feel deprived of a larger portion they'd never seen. The portions were human scale because they were designed for actual human stomachs. Dessert was Sunday, and that made it something. Sunday dinner had dessert: apple pie, chocolate cake, a dish of ice cream, made from scratch, served in reasonable portions, absolutely delicious. Tuesday did not have dessert, neither did Wednesday. Not because women in the 1950s were particularly strong-willed, because dessert was Sunday. That was the deal. And the deal was so thoroughly understood by every member of the household that nobody argued with it. This also meant dessert was genuinely special. When Sunday dinner ended and the pie came out, it meant something. It was an event. You appreciated it in a way that daily dessert makes impossible. The birthday cake was for the birthday. The pie was for Sunday. The cookies your mother made were for the cookie tin that came out on specific occasions. Celebration food stayed connected to actual celebrations. That connection kept it rare enough to be wonderful. Soda was an occasion, not a habit. High fructose corn syrup didn't exist yet. Sugar was real sugar, and it was used sparingly because it wasn't cheap. A bottle of Coca-Cola in the 1950s was 6.5 ounces. That's less than a cup. It was a glass bottle, it was cold, it was delicious, and when it was gone, it was gone. You didn't drink soda at every meal. You didn't drink it at lunch at your desk. You didn't drink it from a 32-ounce cup through a straw while driving. Soda was a treat. It was something you had at a diner on a Saturday, or from a vending machine as a genuine small indulgence, or at a birthday party in a little paper cup. Nobody drank it constantly. The idea would have seemed excessive to a 1950s woman the same way it seems excessive now to anyone who stops to think about it. Walking was just part of the day. Nobody called it exercise. Nobody counted steps. Nobody needed to. You walked to the grocery store, or you walked from the parking lot that wasn't right next to the door. You walked to the neighbor's house. You walked downtown because that's where the errands were. The housework itself was physical. Wringing laundry, hauling the vacuum up the stairs, scrubbing the floor on your hands and knees, hanging sheets on the line. These weren't workouts. They were Tuesday. The kitchen itself required movement. Nothing was as convenient as it is now. You stood at the stove, you stood at the sink, you moved back and forth across the kitchen for an hour putting a meal together. A 1950s woman didn't sit still much, not because she was committed to an active lifestyle, because her life didn't let her. The kitchen closed after dinner. After the dishes were washed and put away, the kitchen was done for the night. There wasn't a refrigerator stocked with grab-and-go containers and leftover takeout boxes. There wasn't a pantry full of individually wrapped snacks designed to be eaten directly from the bag while watching television. If you wanted something after dinner in 1955, you had to actually want it enough to go to the kitchen, find something, and prepare it. The friction alone stopped most late-night eating before it started. The kitchen closing was also cultural. Eating after dinner was considered a little indulgent, a little outside the structure. It wasn't forbidden, but it wasn't the norm either. The family had eaten. The meal was over. The day was winding down. That boundary, that clear end point to the eating day, was doing more work than anyone understood at the time. They never thought of any of this as a diet. Here is the thing that matters most. A woman in 1955 was not managing her weight. She was not tracking anything, avoiding anything, substituting anything, or maintaining willpower against anything. She was just living her life. The life that happened to include reasonable portions, 3 structured meals, very little snacking, real food cooked from scratch, a kitchen that closed at night, and a body that stayed naturally thin as the result of all of it. When someone eventually asked her how she did it, she didn't have a good answer because in her mind she hadn't done anything. And in a way, she hadn't. The life itself was the diet. The structure was the system. She didn't have to try because trying wasn't necessary. If any of this sounds like your life growing up, like something you remember from your mother's kitchen or your grandmother's house, it's because it was. That's exactly how it worked. And it worked. There's a reason women from that era look back and say the same thing. We just ate normally. They weren't wrong. They were eating normally, for a food environment that made normal enough. If this brought back something you remember, a Sunday pie, a paper bag lunch, a mother saying it'll ruin your appetite, leave it in the comments. Those memories are worth keeping.